Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Reunion Gold Live Summit today, hosted by Six. I'm very pleased to introduce our speaker today. We have Reunion Gold CEO, Carlos Bertoni. Carlos is going to walk us through a company presentation, and after we will be accepting questions live. So as a reminder, you can submit questions at any time on the Q&A panel on the right-hand side of the screen, and we're going to get to them after the presentation is over. And as always, the summit is being recorded and available to watch afterwards on Six.com. But without any further ado, I'm going to hand it over to you, Carlos, to kick it off.
Thank you very much. Good day, everybody. Thanks for your presence. Good talking to you about Reunion Gold. We're very excited about the discovery we made in Guyana, and so we're looking forward to present it to you. This presentation will last about maybe 30 minutes, and of course, we'll be happy to answer any questions or doubts that you might have. So let's get it going. And we are a listed company, so we have to ask you to consider the statements here that are made, and of course this is the typical release information that we need to present. Now, who's Reunion? Reunion is a company essentially working in a part of South America that we call the Guiana Shield, and we made recently a very interesting discovery in Guyana, one of the 3 countries covering this region on the north coast of South America. And in this discovery, which we call Oko West, we've been drilling, of course, and we outlined a continuous gold mineralization over a strike length, over a distance of 2.5 kilometers, and down to a vertical depth of 350 meters. You don't make discoveries like this every day, so this is something we're very proud to have done, and we're very happy to share this with you. And up to mid-February, we've done almost 20,000 meters of drilling by now. This stats here is a bit out of date. And this deposit, this gold deposit, will be open pit amenable. That is, we will be able to open a pit and mine it as an open pit, which is the easiest and the cheaper way of doing this kind of mining. We have very good gold grades. We have very good indications of gold recovery from metallurgical test, and we're operating in a mining-friendly jurisdiction, that's Guyana, in which several gold deposits are already in operation. We plan to provide our shareholders with a maiden resource statement by the 3rd quarter of this year. That will be a very significant event in which we formally disclose the tons and grades and the gold content of what we've been discovered. In terms of the corporate highlights, we're a group of experienced technical, legal, and financial people. We worked together in the 90s in the same region, hence the name Reunion. A group of people that has worked in the 90s together and now are ready to come back and take on from where we left in the 90s and move things forward. We have a strategic alliance with Barrick Gold, one of the 2 largest gold producers in the world. This alliance signifies that there's a trust in our ability to perform, to do exploration in this region, and Barrick doesn't do this alliance with just about everybody. So that's a very meaningful alliance, and that we have one current project with Barrick in Suriname. We have a strong cash position, which allows us to do the work that we're proposing to do. This is a map of what we call the Guiana Shield. The 3 countries we have on the far left, Guyana, the center, Suriname, and French Guiana. These are countries with very diverse cultural backgrounds, very primitive infrastructure, let's say, in terms of accessing the interior, of doing work in terms of available electrical power, etc., etc. So for some reason, for these reasons, has been left behind in terms of exploration, for gold exploration. This part of South America was once connected with Africa of course, the Atlantic Ocean split up this continent, and this geology here corresponds on the other side of the ocean with geology of Guyana, Ivory Coast, Mali, etc., which, as you know, has a very large, very significant gold production. So this region has lagged behind, but of course, there's strong indications that it's very well endowed with gold. If you look at things in Venezuela, Northwest Guyana, Eastern Suriname, and French Guiana, they're world-class gold deposits. And we just want to point out with you in orange, these are the projects in which we're involved. We have Oko West in Guyana. We have Northwest Extension in Suriname. That's a project in partnership with Barrick Gold. And we have 2 projects in French Guiana. Today, we're going to talk almost exclusively on Oko West, a little bit about Suriname. And the projects in French Guiana are essentially on standby, waiting some permitting to happen and for us to continue. This map all shows a lot of patches of green. Those patches of green, geologically, we call them greenstone belts. These are belts of volcanic rocks, intrusive rocks, where gold occurs. Everywhere in the world, you go to a shield region, you want to look, where are the greenstone belts? That's where you're going to find your gold, this type of gold deposits. So as you can see, there's a lot of this rocks in Northwest Guyana, Eastern Suriname, and North and South French Guiana. And of course, we are very much looking for gold in this belt. This next, let's talk about Oko West now. And this first map shows the location of Oko West here on the left center of the map. The capital city of Georgetown on the upper right corner. This project is actually accessible by road. If you want to drive from Georgetown to Oko West, you could actually do it. You take a good day. You might need a 4-wheel drive vehicle to access the last part of the project, the last road called the Bertoni Road, but it's accessible by road. We don't have to start building roads to the jungle here, which is a big plus to move this project forward. What is called the Bertoni Road, the road that goes just south of the project area, is actually being rehabilitated by Gran Colombia that wants to put this Toroparo mine in production later this year. So we're going to be benefiting from that improvement of the road. So access is going to be even better. This map shows the sketchy geological map. The green patches are the greenstone belts. The pink patches are the granitic rocks. As you can see, the Oko West project is straddling a belt of north-south trending volcanic rocks, sitting right next to a granitic body to the east. That's a key feature of this deposit. Here's a zoom of the project area. The project area is shown here in the black outline. And I was talking seconds ago about this contact on the eastern side. On the right-hand side, you have the granitic rocks. And then you have the green and the blues. Those are volcanic and sedimentary rocks. And of course, this kind of contact between 2 rock types, this nature, that's usually in this part of the world where you want to look for gold. So we did a soil sampling survey. We took samples along this contact, and this orange and red and yellow patches are the gold anomalies we got from the soil samples. And of course, you can see this anomaly, it breaks up, it's more continuous, etc., but it extends for 6 kilometers from top to bottom along the entire contact of these 2 rock types. Just want to point out, to the north of us, our neighbors, our friends from G2 Goldfields, their project is really next door, adjacent to ours. And last week, G2 announced roughly 1 million ounces in the resources. So this demonstrates that mineralization we have within our project doesn't stop at the boundary, continues to the north into the G2 Goldfields ground. And it's a very strong system. It's 6 kilometers in our ground. Of course, it continues into the ground to the north. And that's something that is of interest, because you want to be doing exploration in a system which has, potential for something large, which certainly seems to be the case here. We divided this anomaly in two groups. To the north, the Kairuni zone; to the south, the Takutu zone. Most of the work we've done has been on the northern part, on the Kairuni zone, and I'm going to zoom in on that part now. That's still showing the zoom into that gold anomaly, and just a bit of a history of this discovery. We started working in 2019 when we optioned some claims. We did an airborne mag survey, which helped us guide our exploration at the geochemistry we were planning at the time. Then in 2020, we did the soil geochemistry. We identified that anomaly. Of course, COVID showed up. We were a bit slowed down, but even later in 2020, we followed up with the Kairuni zone with a lot of trenching, and then we start drilling. Our trenching results were outstanding. Of course, the trenching, you can only go so deep, but we had several very strong anomalies from trenching, and then we started a maiden program towards the end of 2020 and early 2021, just to demonstrate that this thing had roots. It does. Of course, then we launched in the third quarter of 2021 a proper drilling program, a comprehensive drilling program. So this project is barely a year old when it comes to drilling, when it comes to defining gold resources. Let's keep zooming in. Of course, here I'm showing you only the Kairuni zone, only the northern part of that soil anomaly. Because we have, of course, so much drilling and a lot of trenching, we cannot possibly represent every result in a map of this scale. So we are representing gold mineralization here by those red and yellow patches. And as you can see, there's very good continuity along 2.5 kilometers. That's the length from north to south on this map. There's some gaps, of course, but those gaps are mostly related to where we have not done enough drilling. And I'm going to come back to this picture in a couple of slides to show you how it looks. This results highlighted in green refer to our last press release, in which we released several very good results. And there are two outstanding holes here, holes 62 and 63. You can see them on the right side, in which we intersected gold mineralization to a depth of 350 meters. When we started this project, of course, there were a lot of doubts. How far does this gold system go at depth? Is it a mushroom? Are you just sampling the head of something? How do we know this thing has depth continuity? And here's the answer. We drilled these two holes with those targets in mind. We're not drilling the entire deposit to that depth, but here's a very strong demonstration that mineralization continues at depth. Our neighbors and our friends to the north that just announced a resource last week, their resource goes down to 300, 400 meters. That demonstrates the system here has very good depth continuity. And the table here on the left-hand side shows that we have very good length and very good grades. These outstanding numbers, for example, of 5 grams over 100 meters, 16 grams of 37 meters. This system has very strong mineralization, not only in terms of grade, but in terms of volume as well. And let me show you a couple sections, which will be just showing cross sections right across the center of what we call block 4 here. Okay, these are geological sections looking north. Okay, and these drill holes are represented here by those lines. To the left is west, to the east, to the right is east. And this is a hole 62, for example, which intersect the mineralization down to a depth of 250 meters. And as you can see, mineralization is fairly continuous and consistent from top to bottom. A nice thing about this deposit is that it's a completely brand new discovery. We're not drilling under somebody's pit. artisanal pit, a pork knocker pit, like you say in Guyana. We're drilling mineralization, which we found from scratch, right from the surface. And this is a very good feature because here you have, for example, a very thick saprolite mineralization, which is defined by this dashed little line. It's almost over 100 meters deep here. In it, it's mineralized. Of course, that means when you start an open pit, all this material here will be not mined by open pit matters, free digging. You hardly have to blast. The material is essentially made mostly of soil. The rock has been completely weathered on this upper part of the terrain because of the weathering effects on this humid climate. This is the Amazonian climate, of course, with high humidity, lots of water. And mineralization, as you can see here, is hosted by this band of blue, mostly. These are essentially sedimentary rocks, and they are smashed in between granites. Here's one body of granite, here's another one, and here's another one. These rocks were subject to tectonic forces on the east-west sense, from the north-south sense, and these rocks became thoroughly broken up and thoroughly fractured. Here's a picture of a sedimentary rock. Look at how many veins it has. Look at all those alteration halos around the veins, cross-cutting veins, indicating you have more than one event of fracturing on these rocks. So that's a typical mineralization. And because these rocks were so thoroughly fractured, it created a lot of space. And when the fluids came up and filled the space, it essentially deposit gold in all those little veinlets. That's why we have such wide widths along this sedimentary package. That's essentially the nature of mineralization. It's a fairly tabular in this central part, very continuous. That's a discovery trench 44 right on top. And to this hole here, 62, demonstrating mineralization at depth. Here's another section. This one went down to 300 meters. Here, right on the bottom, you have 2.5 grams over 65 meters. Very good lengths, very good grades. And again, within the sedimentary package, and again, within a very nice thickness of saprolite, this weathered rock, which is ready to be mined. Okay? And this is just a couple shots here. This is our surveyor. We've done all the surveying of the area with differential GPS. This is our reverse circulation rig. We have one of these rigs, one reverse circulation, which does drill holes down to about 100 meters. And we have 3 diamond rigs now, which can go down to 400 and 500 meters at depth. So we have all the tools to demonstrate what this mineralization size and potential is. Now, here's a bit of a summary slide of what we have. Again, for scale, this is 2.5 kilometers long. This is a plan map, and this is a section map. Okay, the plan looks from top to bottom. Of course, this is north to the right, south to the left, and west ahead of you. And this section is a section along the axis of this map. And this section looks west, okay? And all those dots here, what they mean, all the black dots are the holes we already did, and all the red and blue dots are the holes we are currently doing. As you notice, there are several gaps, both on plan, on section. Here's, for example, there's missing information, etc., etc. Okay. The purpose, our current drilling program is to infill the blue area at a frequency, at a density rather of 50 by 50 meters in drill holes. So all these holes have been drilled. We're targeting a depth of this line here, 250 meters. That would be our pit bottom. We have not designed a pit, of course, but that's the target we're giving ourselves to infill this deposit. We already demonstrated mineralization goes down to 250 meters. As you can see here, those are the 2 holes that do that. That's just a scale here to demonstrate. This is 350 meters. That's where these 2 holes intersected mineralization. Okay? So what we're doing, we're infilling all the blue area here. okay, at a density of 50 by 50 meters spacing on both senses to the north, south, and east, west. And that's what we want to complete this drilling program by August this year. And then with this information, do a resource estimate and a pit design, and essentially report to our shareholders what we've discovered. This will be an important event for this project because it will formally disclose what we have in terms of tons, in terms of grade, in terms of contained gold that could be potentially mined as an open pit deposit. Okay, so but we're not stopping there. Of course, we have other targets in the area. Of course, the obvious first target is this 3.5 kilometers here to the south of Karuni, which remains to be drilled. And we have a team doing the work there right now. We have anomalies to the west of the system that needs to be tested. And we have an area here which shed a lot of alluvial gold. All these orange patches, these are all alluvial gold that were historically mined. So you want to go to the headwaters of these systems and see where the gold is coming from. So here's a potential source area. Here's another potential source area for this alluvial gold. Here's another one for this alluvial gold. Of course, this source area here was what was mined down this particular creek here. So this is upside, this is blue sky. This is something we have, it's in the works, and we're preparing to do this additional exploration. And we don't want to stop, of course, here in the Karuni zone. And then what else are we doing with this project? We're doing metallurgical studies, because it's nice to find a gold deposit, but how much gold can you actually get out of it? So we did some preliminary, what we call bottle rolls, in which you put your sample in these bottles here, and you put a cyanide solution in it, and you roll the bottles on this tray, and you see how much gold is extracted by the cyanide. So we had some very good numbers, up to 96% extraction from the system. And of course, this is a very simple preliminary test, but we've committed to a full test, full metallurgical test. We're shipping over 1 ton of rocks up to Canada to a full metallurgical lab, which is going to process the samples and tell us how much gold is recoverable, what's the best grind, how much cyanide you need to proportion to recover it, to extract gold, etc., etc. All that work is planned and will be reported in the second half of the year as well. And here's a summary slide again. We are into a 15,000 meter, what is phase 4 drill program. We're completing that towards the end of the second quarter or the third quarter of this year. We want to continue confirming mineralization, what we call the Karuni zone. We want to extend the mineralization at depth and demonstrate it. We want to do exploration, those 3 other targets, and we want to publish this maiden resource on the second half of the year, very likely towards the third quarter of this year. And then we are doing the tail metallurgical work, and we're also doing environmental baseline study to demonstrate, what is the current environmental status of this area, etc., and what we need to do to work in a respectful way as good stewards of the environment, both physical and human. And that's Oko, ladies and gentlemen. And just a quick look here at Suriname. Suriname, this project is in northern Suriname, not far from the capital city of Paramaribo. And it's a fairly large area. Nobody ever explored this area before. We did a MAG survey of this area. We identified some structures that are cross-cutting this area. These structures are coming from the southeast, from the Rosebud area. And we want to test those structures for gold mineralization by drilling. So we just completed 30 diamond drill holes. We are looking at the results at this point, and we're looking what else we're going to do later this year. This is, as I said, is a joint venture with Barrick Gold. And then just some considerations about the company and our capital structure. The graph on the left shows the performance of our stock, which has done fairly well over the last year on the strength of the announcements that we've made in results, etc. And the capital structure of the company is here. As you can see, we have some very illustrious shareholders, including Barrick, including Dundee, Condar, Jupiter, Labra, and we have essentially a very strong participation of institutions in the stock. And we have, as I said, a strong management team. Dave Fennell, of course, was the creator of Golden Star, who once did a lot of this pioneering exploration work in the Guiana Shield. A very strong board of directors with a good technical and financial and environmental background. And we have a technical committee, a very extremely strong technical people that are advisors when it comes to technical issues in which we work with. We're very proud of our environmental and the social respect and how we work. And of course, ESG is you cannot work in any other way in terms of respecting the environment, respecting your stakeholders in the area, and doing these things in the proper way with good governance. And a quick report here. We have a partnership with the Ministry of Health in Guyana. We provide free consultations, free testing, and free treatment to any malaria patients in the region. Over the last few months, we have over 300 people that came to our camp. Our nurses receive the people, they test these persons for malaria. If they're positive, they provide the treatment, etc. This is still a fairly isolated area, so people don't have to travel for hours to be tested and to be treated. And this is a key, something we're very proud of. And we just be named participants in the Champions of the America in terms of malaria control. That's our small contribution to the health of the population around us. And one of the pictures is one of our safety meetings. We're happy to have a very good safety record, and we look forward to continue to that. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention. This completes the presentation. That's a picture of our camp, and we're certainly looking forward to your visit sometime, and I'm be happy to answer some of your questions here.
Great, thank you so much, Carlos. We have a few questions here. So our first question from Bobby is asking, have we done any drilling in the southern 2/3 of the strike? And if not, why? And if so, what are the results?
Okay. We've done only about 10 reverse circulation drill holes. The way we explore is fairly systematic. We first do soil geochemistry to identify where gold mineralization is. Then we do trenching to try to see physically mineralization on the walls. We always try to reach saprolite to avoid the transported material. And once we see that, we do channel samples along the trenches, and only then we drilled. Okay, we done 5 trenches on the southern part. We have some interesting results. We have some very good grab samples. We started, as I said, with a half a dozen reverse circulation drill holes. And then that's when we had to pull our rig back to the northern part to give continuity of that drilling program. What we're doing now, we have a team going back, screening that whole area, doing geological mapping. Our excavators are fully committed to the drilling program in terms of preparing drill bags, everything. We are renting another excavator to come down this month actually, and to do additional trenches. And we already have about 3,000 meters of reverse circulation drill holes planned. The results of these holes are actually the holes we did in the past are in our website. We split the hole anomaly into blocks, and one would have to identify block 7, for example, and those are the holes that were done on the southern part of this system so far.
Great, thank you so much. David's asking, what are you seeing under the Duracrete in the bottom 3 kilometers of the target? And when will you put a few 200-meter fences down there?
This area, or all the humid areas along the equator, you have is a geomorphological feature, what we call dirty crust. And this dirty crust is a crust formed mostly by indurated, very iron-rich material. It's hard as a concrete, and it forms right on the surface where the water table no longer travels to. And this material is impervious to hand augering and soil sampling. So a lot of this area to the southern part of the project is covered by dirty crust, and that's why we think the soil anomalies there broke up. They're not as continuous as in the Caroni zone. So that's why we are carefully remapping where's the edge of the dirty crust, where the saprolite, etc. And as of last week, we got some outstanding channel samples from sampling that we've done, what we call block 6. And now we're just preparing to put the RC rig there to test this. So we think our soil sampling was not as effective there as in the northern part, hence the broken up soil anomalies. Of course, the RC can go through the dirty crust, no issues there. As I said, it's very hard, but it will drill it through, and we'll get to the bottom of this material and see where the gold is.
Thank you. We have a question here. Is the Oko project fully permitted?
It's an interesting question. The permitting system in Guyana is, I would say, honestly, a bit cumbersome. You cannot go to Guyana and stake ground for gold exploration. Okay? You essentially all the greenstone belts are already staked by local entrepreneurs that seek to do artisanal gold mining. So almost inevitably, you have to do option agreements with these entrepreneurs, which is the case here. This project comprises option agreements with 2 Guyanese entrepreneurs. And then because this original permits, they call small scale permits. They are not subject to the same permitting laws or procedures as if you're doing a larger scale mining project in an industrial scale, for example. So because of that, so the permitting grows as the project evolves. There's very little permitting required for the artisanal work. So, and because we're still under those regulations, we don't have a lot of permitting to do at this stage. But once this project evolves to what is called a prospecting license, in which a company like ours can be the title holder, then a whole series of permits come into effect. And of course, for this to become a mining license, we have to produce a full EIA and apply all the rules apply for it, etc., as you move forward. So this is something that will happen gradually as the exploration advances and as the project advances into eventual a mining stage.
Great, thank you. Bobby's asking, what can we expect with adding analyst coverage? It appears that we have 2 covering us now, and both have stated that this will be a mine. Why are they so confident?
Well, I also think it's going to be a mine. Of course, what I cannot do, I cannot disclose what I think the size will be. I mean, it tons with the grade and the gold content, of course. I cannot discuss that. Analysts at they have looked at the data. We make the data available, and they reach their own conclusions. Because essentially, when you look at the dimensions of this demineralized material, when you look at the grade, is very high likelihood that this deposit could be mined as an open pit. Okay, but of course, you have to do all your homework. You have to demonstrate that by drilling, by doing all your analysis, by doing your metallurgical studies, etc., etc. So what we expect that other analysts will pick up the coverage of this project, of the company. In fact, we have an analyst trip planned in 2 weeks' time, in which they will visit the project, they'll be looking at the data, they'll reach their own conclusions, and they'll publish it. Yeah? So the coverage I expect will increase to about another 3 analysts in the near future.
Thank you. Our next question here is, how deep do you plan the initial open pit? Is it 250 to 300 meters? And what was the grade in your deepest hole? And do you plan to have more deeper holes?
Yeah, what determines the depth of a pit is essentially the economic factors that you're going to be applying to it. Gold grade, of course, the volumes that you're dealing with, how much waste you have to deal with, etc., etc. And that's all those factors determine what, and of course the gold price, a key factor, determines how far you can mine. I expect at this point, as I say, is an expectation that, and we are targeting a dip, a pit bottom at between 200 and 250 meters. Okay, we have to establish a target like that. There's limited budget and limited time to drill this thing at depth. One hole, if you drill a hole 350 meters or 400 meters, it would take almost a week to drill a hole like that. So there are only so many you can do that in a program. We're planning to do at least 3 more deeper holes. The deepest hole we've done so far is 350 meters vertical depth. We are planning at least 1 hole down to 500 meters. That will be a demonstration hole. And then we're planning at least 2 or 3 more holes down to 350 meters. Okay? These holes will establish and will demonstrate that this deposit continues to those depths. It doesn't mean we're going to plan a pit down to a depth of 500 meters. That will be dictated by the factors, as I said, by the gold price, by the grade, and everything else that will be applied to that estimate. Of course, that's the realm of mining engineering. But of course, since the deposit starts from the surface, it will be extremely likely it will be an open pit deposit because mineralization is right on the surface. Again, at the depth of 300 and 350 meters, we have a range of grades between 1.5 and 3.5 grams per ton, okay? Depending exactly which hole you look at it and which interval you look at it. If you want to say the arithmetic average of grade on this deposit, and that's a very not a very good number in terms of planning, in terms of long-term estimates, it would be certainly better than 2 grams. Between 2 and 2.5 grams, this would be roughly the arithmetic grade of this deposit. But of course, you have to look at this. The ultimate grade, the average ultimate grade, is something which will be the object of a lot of work coming up.
Thank you. Our next question is Guyana generally supportive, or have they initiated slowdowns?
Guyana has been very supportive. The first, let's say, new generation of mines in Guyana was the Omai mine in Guyana. That mine was put in production in 1993. I'm honored. I was part of the team that did exploration of Omai in the early 90s. That was a joint venture between Golden Star Resources and Cambior. Cambior put it in production and mined Omai. And that was the first mining agreement since Guyana became independent in 1964. Okay? And that agreement was honored throughout the life of the mine. And subsequently, at least 3 other mines have been put in production in Guyana with 3 new agreements, and all these agreements have been honored as well by the government of Guyana. So it's a very good record in terms of a country being respectable to the agreements it signed. Okay, of course, Guyana is in an oil boom at this point. I mean, very large oil discoveries have been made offshore from Guyana. That's the current focus, of course, on the economy and the looking forward in Guyana, and it will potentially transform this country to a new level. Of course, gold will continue to be mined, and Guyana is very well endowed, and we expect the government of Guyana to continue to be promotional, to be supportive of any gold mining going forward.
Absolutely. Thank you. Jean says, thank you, Carlos, for this great webinar. I would like to know if you're still involved in the Dorlin project with Oplata Mining Gold, and if you'd like to invest more in French Guiana with AMG.
Yeah, the 2 projects we still have involvement in French Guiana is Dorlin with Oplata, a French company, and another project called Boulanger with another French company called Compagnie Minière de Boulanger, CMB. We did quite a bit of work at Dorlin. In fact, that's our most advanced project in our portfolio. We disclosed more than 1.5 million ounces in a 43-101 report for Dorlin. Low grade, between 1 and 1.5 grams per ton. This project is challenged logistically, is in the middle of French Guiana. It depends on the road to be built. The project cannot support a road because of the distance and the cost involved. And but that's a project which, as a geologist, I think has a great potential for size. And we looked at just a tiny part of the southern edge of this project area. We applied to the, rather Oplata, with our involvement, applied for a concession permit for this area. This is still being looked at by the French administration. The processing of applications and permits in French Guiana are quite slow, very bureaucratic, and we decided to pause the work while the French administration reviews these applications. The same situation for Boulanger, which is doesn't have any logistical issues. It's readily accessible. There's 3 concessions and at least 2 exploration permits and application and being reviewed, been analyzed rather, and that we prefer to wait to confirm that these permits are issued before we go back to do work. We still have French geologists that work with us with these projects. We maintain the intellectual knowledge about these areas, and it's a challenge, an expensive place to work and do exploration, but it, again, is very well endowed, and it cannot be forgotten.
Thank you. Another question here. When do you plan to start the industrial production, and what is the investment still remaining before starting production?
Presumably you're talking about Oko West. The following phases are as follows. We have to continue exploration, arrive at issuing what is called a 43-101 resource statement. That's a Canadian regulations for how you disclose what your size of the deposit is and its characteristics. We have to reach that stage. Once you reach a resource statement, you have to consider, you continue exploring to find more, or you're happy with what you got, and then you start planning for mining. Okay, that decision will be made later this year once we reach that stage. See how many ounces of gold we'll find, and what will be the cost of mining and the methods of mining that. we might reach a decision that, well, that's big enough, let's think about mining it, or it's not big enough, let's continue exploring it and make this bigger. I think the second option will be the case. I mean, by August, September, we would not yet have reached the ultimate size of this project. So we very likely will continue exploring, but at the same time doing the homework we have to do to, like, metallurgical work, environmental work, to move this whole project forward. But there will be a point where you say, well, enough is enough. We have enough to build a mine. Then you do an environmental impact assessment, a full EIA, and of course you have to do it by equator principles, by IFC standards, because you're going to need to finance your deposit with large commercial banks, and you need to do things that properly, so these financial institutions would accept to finance your project. And then once you obtain your financing, you go to the Guyana government and they say, we are ready to build. Let's complete our mineral agreement, and that you sign off, and you get a mining permit. Then you're allowed to build. I would say, considering the time frame it takes to do all these things, I would say we have at least 2 years of work ahead of us in terms of completing exploration, in terms of doing full feasibility study, in terms of doing full environmental studies, etc. It will be at least a minimum of 2 years to reach a point in which you're going to be built and extract your gold.
All right, well, that is all the questions I believe we have for today. Thank you so much, Carlos, for taking us through the presentation and the live Q&A. I also want to thank everyone who joined us and asked all these great questions. If you do have any following questions after this summit, feel free to reach out directly to the Reunion Gold team. Their information's on this slide here. You can also find more information on their website, reuniongold.com. But before I close out, I'll pass it back to you, Carlos, if you have any final remarks.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you for your time, your audience. I know you have a lot of webinars these days, so your presence is valued, and we'll be very happy to continue this discussion and hopefully host you for a mine visit sometime in Guyana.